Start giving him a thumbs up.
Hey, let's go for it. Easy peasy keto. And I have no clue what week this really is. I think it's, 10, maybe 11.
Technically week 12 of the groups because it's a 13-week semester, but
He's just going to deflate me, But, yep. And that's all fine and dandy. We meet when we can. We did have the 1 week where I just was not physically and mentally able to do this. And maybe it was what I needed, was to drag my ass down here. And excuse me, that's what it would have been doing. So the information that we pulled together for that week is what we're going to go through this week. And it might get a little emotional, but he's had some time to heal from our thoughts on this group. So, Ken, do you want to go ahead and open this up with a Bible verse and your thoughts on it?
Yes, I will. Good evening, everybody. This is a letter from Paul to the Corinthians. This is the 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 out of the NLT. If you think you're standing strong, be careful not to fall. I'd like to say this is a promise that God will always make a way of escape out of whatever temptation stand before us. We must look for a way to say no to making the wrong choices of the food we are eating. When we are eating keto, we are eating good fats and proteins into our bodies. The craving of starches and sugar are still going to happen. Temptations at this time, eating unhealthy food, are powerful. These are referred to as shortcomings. We ask God to take them away. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
I had not heard the word shortcomings used like this is routine. Everybody knows that word. And he explained to me that in 12-step programs, they use that word a lot when people relapse or whatever. Is that
the relapse or that stinking thinking going on?
Yeah. So, so this week we are discussing our carb addictions. And I think it's a good time of the year with all of the temptations we have out there to talk about the carb addictions. And we have 2 videos, both of them by Dr. Saivez, the carb addiction doctor. He's been in practice for like 22 years or longer now. The first one that we're going to watch, he recorded during the pandemic. I think he said it was 2020 or something he makes reference to in there, but it's still really good, helpful information. If you want to go ahead and put it up, Darren, that would be great. They're both short videos. One's 12 minutes and the second one will be 15 minutes.
Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob Sivers, the carb addiction doc, and this video is going to take me back to my roots in carbohydrate addiction. Today we're talking about getting high versus being happy. All human beings, every day, have a variety of things that trigger emotional tension. We have things that make us anxious, depressed, angry, frustrated, stressed out, sad, bored, and from time to time things even give us pleasure. Not so much anymore because it's 2020. But be that as it may, I always try to inject a little humor into my videos to give you that little smile and that happiness, condemning or not. But the point is, all human beings have every day this interaction with things, internal and external, that create emotional tension. And we all have to have mechanisms to dissipate that emotional tension. And one of the reasons I am the carb addiction doc is because very early on for myself as an obese person, I lost 98 pounds as I sit here. Criticize me if you will for my a little bit extra skin. I'm old as well. But the point is that very early on I realized that subconsciously I migrated more and more and more to using a particular substance to instantly obliterate all of those emotions that were evoking that emotional tension. And the two mechanisms I used, number one, was an incredibly powerful, toxic, instantly gratifying drug that just blows the endorphins through the roof of your brain. And amazingly, unlike almost any other drug out there, doesn't cloud judgment, doesn't cloud thought, makes you feel fantastic without any immediate harm. And that drug is the most toxic drug known to mankind, at least in terms of endorphin activation, and it is simply called carbohydrates, sugar and starch. Sugar and starch does not belong in the modern human nutrition system. It belongs in the drug category, along with crystal meth, heroin, fentanyl, alcohol, nicotine, whether it's from vape or from cigarettes. So more and more I realized I was using carbohydrates and the act of snacking, like a baseball bat, to numb, soothe, and obliterate my emotional needs. And while it may have been effective in helping me to obliterate those emotional needs, it would come back very quickly and I'd need more and more and more, and hence the pattern of snacking that is very similar to someone smoking. So as a fat person, I realized I was getting high all the time to dysfunctionally manage my emotional needs, but it wasn't making me happy because on the back end of that high is negativity, guilt, and harm, and repression of issues I should have been dealing with. So I was becoming a less and less effective human being and less happy with myself the more I used crystal meth to get high. And that made me stressed and made me angry. And the other way in which I managed my emotional needs instantaneously is to eviscerate myself at the people around me. Any anxiety, any stress, anger became a way of life for me. And it sucked and it hurt me and it hurt everybody around me. So not only was I enormous, I was obese, I was insulin resistant, I was an angry, horrible human being. All in the name of dysfunctional emotional management. And what I realized, and it took me some time watching some of my obese and diabetic patients to realize that I was really good at getting high and I was awful at feeling happy. Happiness comes from within. And happiness is a responsive event to things that you do that relax you, that calm you down, that you are proud of. No pride in drug addiction, folks. No matter how pretty the pizza, it's there to get high. It isn't a work of art. And I realized the things that really make me happy are things that I accomplish. Things that require some effort, but things that I do, things that I accomplish. And yes, it requires some effort up front. There's no instant gratification. Like drugs, all drugs that give you instant gratification are drugs that get high, that give a person who's vulnerable to addictive behavior the pretext or the excuse to become an addict. And I am and always will be a carbohydrate addict, whether I eat them or not. The things that make me happy, the things that make me content, that relax me, that make me proud of myself, are things that I do. And in order to do them, I had to be counteractive against who I am as a human being. I'm a perfectionist, and I had to let go of outcomes metrics as a measure of my success. It's not about the outcome of what I do, it's about the pleasure I derive for myself from the effort I put into something. So it's not about how far or how fast or how long I ran for. It's about going for a walk and relaxing and connecting with my head and processing stuff and coming back and feeling content and happy that I went for a walk in nature. It's about having some communication with my higher power and having that conversation and feeling secure in that relationship that I can sort through really tough things that are challenging to me. It's not about going to a place of worship or reading a book. Those are social things. Those are social things. The spirituality. And even if you're not spiritual, there are times when I don't have that connection, I just have a meditative moment, a quiet moment where my brain allows itself to connect with my subconscious and sort through some of the issues that are driving my emotional tension. That makes me happy, folks. Being creative makes me happy. Playing a game of cards with my wife, we play cribbage for dessert. Instead of eating sugary crap to get high, we play a game of cards that makes us happy. And we check 2 boxes. We're being creative by playing the game of cards. And I play to win. I don't always get back. I always win. It's my wife, come on. But I love to play. And also, we're having an empathetic human connection. We're chatting. And maybe I have to take the risk of being vulnerable and talking about certain things I'm insecure about, talking about certain things I need some guidance on. But I trust her. I trust her completely. I don't trust her not to hurt me. I trust her to not be judgmental and not be critical. Sometimes feedback hurts. But I know it's for my betterment. It's not meant to hurt. It's not meant to judge. That's an empathetic human connection. So more and more, as I understood that I've forsaken all of happiness, all the things that gave me happiness, for an instant high, for instant gratification, that was toxic to my system and made me fat and sick and unhappy and miserable as a human being, I reinvested in the things that every child does. Every child plays and has fun. Most children are exposed to some form of spirituality and religion. All kids play games, all kids draw, all kids run and ride bikes and draw and paint and sing and are creative, have their imaginary worlds and their imaginary friends. That's creativism. All kids have human connection, and there's almost always at least one empathetic one. But we lose that. We lose that if we're perfectionistic, if we don't use that to provide happiness on an effort investment basis. Because the return of the investment of effort is pride. Pride in our accomplishments, not the result. Pride in the effort itself. It builds up self-esteem, it builds up self-confidence. It creates and engenders happiness. Know the difference between getting high on drugs and getting high on addictive behaviors with remorse and negativity and guilt on the back end. And unconditional happiness that requires the investment of effort. There's no downside. Whether you win or lose, it isn't outcome-based, folks. It's effort-based. And it makes you proud, it builds up self-esteem, builds up self-confidence. It makes us human. Trading getting high for the hard work and the pleasure of being happy. Understand the difference between high and happy. And you will be a much, much more effective human being. And if you are going to sustain a keto carnivore way of life, you cannot do that by killing your best friend, carbohydrates, and not replacing her with a diverse set of friends called happiness. Not the set of dwarfs, or one of the set of dwarfs. The act of effort to to provide happiness. That, folks, is carbohydrate addiction, and I am the carb addiction doctor. If this message resonated, please contribute to our Patreon account. It pays for these visits, for these videos. It's a charitable organization. It helps us to educate and to shine the light on something that is in the darkness in our country right now, which is carbohydrate addiction. And certainly subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and on Instagram at Carb Addiction Doctor. I hope this video got you to step back from your life and look at it from those two perspectives. Good luck, and if you're interested in some assistance or some guidance along this journey, text us to 561-517-0642 and we can set up an appointment. Thanks for watching.
This is why he's my doctor of choice.
Hi, folks.
I have to, before we get in discussion about it, when I walked over here, I wrote down the word humor. I remember one time early on when we watched a video of his, and Darren, you said, does he ever smile? And here he said he had to include humor. And I'm thinking, yep, see? He just smiles on the inside. We just don't see it. But he sure hits the nail on the head with the hammer for me, because my carb addiction is serious. I fight it every day, even though I've been doing keto now about 2.5 years. And I don't have a desire to sit down and eat most all of the foods, but I'm reminded daily in one way or another. It'd be easy to backslide, just like the alcoholic. So many of them I know being raised with an alcoholic family, to watch them fight that. And it took my mom, when she passed, she was sober over 30 years. I have her 31-year coin from AA. But she had to go out there and lead AA groups in the prison with the Alaska Native population. My brother was a recovering alcoholic when he passed away. And I never realized how much my carb addiction was so identical to their addiction. Of course, they ate too with the booze, but we always called them alcoholics. They were drunks. I'm a drunk for the carbs. And it's going to be with me for my life. And I'm sure everybody here understands that. It's very painful to admit it. But when I was first asked to start leading this group, to start presenting, it was like, who would want to hear from me? But I've walked in all those shoes. Yes, you, Evelyn, I know. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being one of my fellow carb addicts. We're working it together. I love you too. Same way with you. We're going to do this together. And everybody in this room has had some issue with not having healthy eating. Because, I mean, it's out there for us all the time. It is just there. But anyway, so anybody else have comments to make about this video before we go on to his next one?
Something that he said that resonated with me was the opportunities that present themselves to either avoid or partake in those carbohydrates. And I remember earlier today, at work, somebody was making some chips, and it's important to taste them. And they're corn chips. They're completely useless to the body. They're not even bioavailable. We know the science behind it, but they taste amazing, covered in salt and lime. And I thought to myself, I wonder how her chips taste today, because I got to critique them. And I looked over, and I was thankful that all of them were already wrapped and covered. There wasn't an exposed chip for me to grab and put in my mouth. I went, oh, Jesus. And then I went on with things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was literally planning. And I looked over, and I was like, oh, thank you for taking away the opportunity. She was so efficient that she had covered everything, put it away, and there was nothing right next to me. And I was like, I'm gonna walk away. I'm not gonna look for more.
Now, do your coworkers know that you eat keto?
Yes, and they
respect
criticize
it?
me. And
Oh.
they when I break the rules, rules quote.
Yeah.
But they also see that almost every time I get something, I get something without rice or beans, and I don't get the corn, and I don't eat the chips, and they're like, why do you do that? And I get extra guacamole, and so and I've even had a couple people ask for help or advice or curiosity about nutrition, and that's been helpful to encourage me. But at the same time, I look at some of the things and I go, that would be really good to taste today. So those opportunities are back and forth. I have to just remind myself it's not worth it. And I was so happy I lost the opportunity today, and I just walked away after that. I'm like, all right, stop it.
And, I know I have had, and I know you must have, people say, but why do you do it? You're skinny now, and you didn't have a weight issue, but you had a health issue.
I had both, yeah.
Okay,
I was 100, almost 100 pounds larger.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm almost back to where I was when we got married. I'm still 25 pounds over where we were when I got married. But it was interesting. I didn't recognize that I was getting bigger until I saw myself one day and went, who's that guy? And then recently we looked back at some pictures and went, wow, I got really pudgy. I didn't even know. I wasn't paying attention. I was just living, but I was starting to feel less energy. My brain was foggy. I was extremely emotional, and I was very much doing the same thing he was doing. Carb eating to medicate.
Right.
It was a big eye opener when one of the people he worked with shared a picture of him from how long? 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So it would have been just after I started my journey. And they're like, who's that guy in the back? They're like, that's Carb. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't realize how big I was. Well, because I was always bigger. So it paled in comparison to my size because I was always so much bigger. And so I always thought of him as thin. But now when I'm looking back at his pictures, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He was unhealthy too.
And that's what, for me to try to explain to people is, I might be at an acceptable weight, which I'm nowhere close to skinny, but according to what the American population is nowadays, I'm skinny. But it's for the health, all the internal healing that's going on, the not having the inflammation, getting off of medications, just the brain fog. I noticed.
Yeah, for sure, the brain fog.
The emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
I had to
Yeah.
My emotions, it was like my cycle, my time of the month. It went seriously calm after I started. I was not a nice person.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm gonna move out.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
But if I'd have known about this during my teenage years, if I'd have known to take iodine for hormonal times in your life, if I'd have known about all the things you should do, shouldn't do, I was a quarter of my life from the time that I started.
But what you know now, you could help your own body, you could help yourself so much, but our cause now in life, like he says, you've got to replace the bad with the good.
Yeah.
And our job is to educate
I'm
the
trying to help
others.
my teen daughters. And the one thing I said is, if I did not have to go through so much acne when I was a teenager, that would have been the one thing that would have got me 100% off of carbs. If I'd have known then that I wouldn't have to fight with acne my whole life, if I could have been off of it. As a teenager, that would have been the number one thing. I'd have dropped every carb in order to not have to deal with teen acne.
So it's not always the pounds, the scale. That is a small side effect that goes away with healing the inside just by not eating the garbage, the carbage, as the doctor, is it Dr. Berry that calls it carbage? Yeah, so, but you want to go ahead and put on the second video. He had us crying. Yeah, we show our emotions when we're working on.
This is Dr. Rob Siverson, Carb Addiction Doc. This is the third of 4 videos that we're shooting in a mini-series of updating our carb addiction starter kit. So to help you understand the aspects of carb addiction, and really the first 2, I try to define addiction, then I try to give you the spectrum of what encompasses carbohydrate addiction. These are things that are not, in my opinion, well understood in the world out there. As we slowly evolve to understand that obesity is more an addiction problem than a nutritional calorie problem. And I think more and more people are starting to get that, but because they're still at the infancy of their understanding, they don't understand this robustly. And yes, I am being arrogant about this, and I don't care if I'm being arrogant because we've been doing this for 22 years. I've tripped over many misinformed stones in my own path. But we've come to this consensus. And when you're looking at yourself through the lens of addiction, you're an expert at failing weight loss programs, you've tried them all, lost some weight, but they failed because your objective was to lose weight, not to transform behaviors and habits. Because that's addiction management. Addiction management is about the empowerment, not the deprivation of change. It's about the empowerment of building and developing new habits and new relationships and breaking old habits. And you cannot break an old habit if you're still doing it. And we discussed the 3 components of carbohydrate addiction: substance itself, sugar and starch, the process of snacking, and the process of the Rottweiler syndrome. Go back and look at the other videos if you haven't seen them. So, and that was the last couple of videos. So today, when you recognize, man, I've got a problem here, I'm obese, and I'm talking about 50 plus pounds of excess weight, or I've now got type 2 diabetes, or I'm pre-diabetic, or I've got cardiovascular disease, or I've got PCOS. If you've got one of the metabolic syndromes that defines this as an addiction, in order to begin this pathway, addiction management, and a group called Prochaska, who wrote a book called Changing for Good, understood this really well in the 80s and 90s about addiction management, is that there is a process of change, and the first step in that process of change is going from a state of pre-contemplation, where you're oblivious to the fact that you have a problem, to being able to contemplate and develop ownership of the fact that you have that problem, and then to contemplate the magnitude of the problem.
After we turn off.
And today's video is going to help you understand the magnitude of the problem and develop some ownership so that you can begin to commit to change. And in the next video, the final one on this, is to say, okay, I'm ready to change. How should that look? And then beyond that, by the way, if you want help into actually making those changes, understanding what's required, that's where you set up a visit with us, because it's unique to each individual and it's not something I'm going to put in the video. But here we go. There are 3 questions I'm looking for you to ask. The first one, once you recognize that you have an obesity, a diabetes, and metabolic, a carbohydrate toxicity issue, the first thing I want you to look at, in order to understand the magnitude of the problem, don't eat or drink anything unless you absolutely know the total carbohydrate content of what's in front of you, what's in your house. Go through your cupboards, go through your fridge. Look at the total carbohydrate content, not the net carbs, not the sugars, not the calories, the total carbohydrate content of what you're about to eat and drink. And if it's not on the label, in the nutrition box on the back, ignore the lies on the front. Not in the nutrition box on the back. Google it. Total carbohydrate content of. And Google will tell you. Because I want you to empower yourself with knowledge. Well, of course, a bag of M&Ms, you kind of know. I don't know what the number is, but it's pretty ugly. But know what the number is. We never, in addiction management, manage by the numbers. So I'm never going to ever tell you to count carbohydrates, or just like an alcoholic never has to know how much alcohol there is in a drink to be able to say in a binary way, yes, no. The smoker doesn't have to know the nicotine content of a cigarette to say yes or no. In addiction management, it's binary, it's yes, no. But in order to understand and contemplate the magnitude of the problem, understand where the carbohydrates are. And the obvious ones are obvious, but get to know the number. A can of Coke is 39 to 40 grams of carbohydrates. The average Tropicana glass of orange juice is 48 to 52 grams. Yeah, that healthy orange juice that you drink every morning for its vitamin C has a lot more sugar in it than a can of Coke. So come to terms with that, know where the sugar is, and understand that even if they say orange juice is healthy because of the vitamin C, well, guess what? A glass of red wine, particularly South African red wine, is very healthy because of all the antioxidants. But if you're an alcoholic, I don't care how healthy that glass of red wine is. The wine, the alcohol content is the problem. And if you're a carbohydrate addict, that's what we have to come to terms with. So get to know the sugar content. And then you're going to bump into all the bullshit from the manufacturers and from the common sentiment on the internet. So the first thing you say, oh, berries are so healthy because they've got all these antioxidants in them. Eric Westman loves this phrase, and I've stolen it from him. Berries are baby fruits. The equivalent is if you're an alcoholic and you drink a bottle of Tito's every day, and you go on an airplane and those little baby bottles of Tito's, that's a berry to fruit. And of course, the alcoholic doesn't care. They come in little bottles or big bottles, alcohol's on the nose. Get rid of those little baby fruits. They're a problem. But understand the carbohydrate content. Oh, it's so low. But it should be 0. The second thing is distinguish between natural carbohydrates and unnatural carbohydrates. Ask yourself this question: what's healthier for you, a donut or an apple? And most of you will knee-jerk and say the apple, because you didn't go and find out the total carbohydrate content of the average apple or the average donut. Oh, but the apple's got natural sugar in it. Google glucose. Glucose is a 6-sided carbon molecule. Google fructose. Fructose is a very similar 6-sided carbon molecule. And it's exactly the same glucose and fructose in the apple as there is in the donut. There is no difference. There is no difference. Come to terms with that. Because in addiction, it isn't about the substance. Carbohydrates are not the problem. The dog's outside of the problem. Carbohydrates are not the problem. The problem is our relationship with it. And that is the most distinguishing factor between a diet and an addiction program. Diets demonize the substance. Addiction demonizes the relationship. And it's your relationship with the apple and the donut that's the problem. A skinny, normal, healthy person can eat the apple. So the first question to ask yourself, in terms of understanding how big the elephant is, don't eat or drink anything unless you absolutely know the total carbohydrate content and get to know it in what's in your environment. The second and the third questions are paired. And go back to the first video in this 4-part series to understand this. Look at how often you put anything to eat or drink in your mouth. Look at how often you put anything to eat or drink in your mouth. Whether it's a bridge like coffee, whether it's a snack, whether it's peanuts or M&Ms, pretzels or a piece of cheese, whether it's a steak, a salad, mashed potatoes, or ice cream, look at how often you put crap in your mouth. And I bet you're eating in response to a feeling called hunger, which is like a smoker smoking in response to cigarettes. So the first question is look at how often. And you heard our dogs barking outside. Our dogs get fed twice a day, 5:30 in the morning and sometime in the evening when I get home. Twice a day, and they are not dying of anorexia. They don't get snacks. So if I feed them at noon, they're not going to eat because noon is not normal feeding time. That's called timed eating. And nutrition, they're getting everything they need. Human beings are no different. We should be eating once, maybe twice a day. And in 1 or 2 meals a day, we get a full component of food. So look at how often, because most people, I only eat 3 or 4, I don't snack. Yeah. Don't say that until you've proven that to yourself. Because we're oblivious to it. We're so conditioned to doing it opportunistically. We don't intend to do it. We don't say, I'm going to snack at 3 o'clock. When you're walking past a colleague's desk and there's some M&Ms on their desk, you grab one and eating it. You have no idea. I have no idea how much coffee I drink in a day. I have no idea how often I do. I can count it. But I know it's somewhere between 16 and 20 times a day. Because this is my cigarette. It's my mind cleansing moment. And I legitimize this coffee because it doesn't cause caloric harm. And it's not perfect, but it's perfect for me. However, look at how often you put calories in your mouth. And the second question that parallels that one is ask yourself why. Why are you doing this right now? I know that that coffee there is not for thirst, it's not for hydration, it's not for nutrition. It is my cigarette. It is my mind cleansing moment. And it is intentionally there because it causes me no tangible harm. Certainly a hell of a lot less harm than my Coke and M&Ms used to. And I have to have that mind cleansing moment. So question 2 and 3 is, look at how often you put calories in your mouth and ask yourself why. And I can guarantee you it's always an emotion event. I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm angry, I'm sad. Boredom is as much an emotion. I'm having fun playing a game on the computer and I'm sitting here with a bowl of pretzels or something snacking on them, or my bowl of popcorn. Correlate your eating and drinking with your emotional needs. Correlate your eating and drinking of carbohydrates with your emotional needs. Then you'll understand how big the elephant is. Oh my God, I never realized it was this bad. And then answer this question. Because this is addiction treatment as opposed to diets. Diets ask you to eat the elephant in one bite. Here's your diet sheet, you're going to get rid of the carbohydrates, you're going to clean all the calories, and you're going to crash and burn. You're going to get the keto food, you're going to feel like shit, you're going to feel terrible, you are not going to be able to sustain this because eating the elephant in one bite is too difficult, nobody can do it. No matter how authoritarian you are, it is unsustainable. The way to eat an elephant is to cut it up in little pieces and deal with removal and replacement in little bits, slowly, sequentially over time. It may take you a month to get rid of all the carbohydrates, and that's okay, because this is a lifetime that we're changing. And you want this to last for about 10 minutes after you die, not just till you've lost 20 or 30 pounds, not till the next emotional event in your life. Addiction management is about removal of negative behaviors and replacement of their positive component with positive behaviors that don't have a negative side to them. Behavioral modification, behavioral change takes time. It's not something you can do in 1 or 2 days or a week or instantly like Nutrisystem promises you. This is a slow, steady process of change, of self-empowerment. Addiction management is about behavioral change, about breaking old bad habits and creating new good ones, and about self-empowerment. It's about self-esteem restoration, self-confidence restoration, and self-empowerment. And that is the long way to success. No empowerment, no self-esteem, no self-confidence, a sense of deprivation, a sense of have to, you're dead in the water, you're going to crash and burn. I get to do this, I've chosen to do this, I'm empowered by doing this, I'm looking forward to what I'm doing. I've surrounded myself with positive habits, and I don't have access to the negative habits. That's where success comes from. And are you going to be perfect at this? Hell no, you're not. You're going to crash and burn many times. But with greater humility and more experience, you're going to learn to do this better and better and better, and eventually there's a final time for you to do this. Just like quitting smoking. That's addiction management, folks. That's the starter kit. Come and see us if you want to know more. Come and see us if you want to understand how our program works. Or if you're already doing it, you want some tweaks, and you want some legs for longevity, you've done well, but now you've stranded and you've leveled off and sliding backwards, give us a shot. This is not just starting, this is keeping going. This is keeping moving forward, and we can help you with every one of those. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. Watch the other videos on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, give us a shout, 561-517-0642. Throw some money at us on Patreon, throw some money at us through our PayPal account, robert@jackschildren.com on PayPal, to keep these videos free if the content is of value. We depend on your donations to do what I'm doing right now. Take care and be carb free.
Again, this is why I choose him to be my doctor. He's really helped me understand my addiction. I can choose to eat celery and whatever the vegetarians eat. You know, I've tried all those diets. They don't work. Once I realized I have an addiction and I'm learning how to control it, it makes a big difference. And the crash and burn, that happens. The backsliding, shortcomings, your word there for that. So I like understanding that it's not just choosing to not eat the elephant all at once, but that we can take this slowly. And as we're doing it even slowly, we're getting healthier. So, comments. Hi guys, glad you guys showed up.
Yes.
Work.
Oh, I understand, that's good. I'm glad you're working, you're supporting all of us that are on Social Security, and yeah. So, but you know, I have handouts here. Ken, you want to give these handouts? We watched many videos, and these are the two that I just pulled.
I really liked the moment when he said it's either yes or no.
Right.
That's it. Don't sit there and try to justify net, total, carb, blah, blah. Just yes or no.
Right.
You know you're an addict, yes or no.
Yeah, so I think
And that's it. In our discussion at home about this, I can't tell you how many total carbs is, you know, in this or that I put in my mouth, but I also know we don't buy those foods that are carb loaded. We've cleaned our house out a few times, our pantry, and taken them down and donated them. And maybe it's something I need to check more. I know my heavy whipping cream has got carbs in it, and I got to cut back on. Maybe I should try to find the little tiny cups of heavy whipping, so when I'm opening it, instead of that quart that goes chug, chug, chug. But it's a learning game. We're all learning how to get our bodies healthier in the process. I normally don't do even a lot of baking or cooking complex meals. I made a cheesecake. Darren came over to help us load stuff onto the tablets, you know, all this, you know how I am with it, and Ken's about the same predicament. And I had made cheesecake for lunch, and it was the first time I had baked the no-bake cheesecake. It was kind of funny. It was a keto chow recipe, no-bake cheesecake, and the first thing is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. It was for the crust, but because I know myself, those are the things I will overeat on. They might say there's 16 servings in this. At our house, it might be 8, 10 servings. Okay. Be honest.
You said two was the key.
And how many did you eat?
fun so far. And
But
after that lunch, I was craving sweets all afternoon.
and that's what happens to me, even though it is
Every time I walk by
Swerve.
the cookies my sister has for the kids there, I was like, man, I'd love to grab a bowl.
And that's how what happens to me is even though I eat something that is within the program, the plan, whatever you want to call it, I do get those cravings. And I'm glad we don't have those things in the house. But I know Ken had some for lunch and he ate his, then he ate the rest of mine as I pushed it away. And what'd you have last night for dinner? So it's not good for us to have.
I had for dessert after my dinner. And I was like, man, that was probably a bit too much for one day.
Yeah,
Because I know that cream cheese base and especially all the heavy whipping cream or the whipped cream you put on mine, I was like, yeah, I bet I might have overshot my target a little bit, yes, that day.
and I do really good if I just stick with my meat, eggs, and cheese kind of meals. And I'm happy with it. I'm full and I'm not craving these things. So we each have to learn where our bodies are and what we can do and what we can't do. So, what have you guys been struggling with this week besides too much work?
Carbs.
Uh-oh. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's an addiction issue, isn't it?
Oh, it definitely is. I had a little self-talk with myself about it. So, like he was saying, the coffee is his thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Just like, since we moved into the new apartment, we went and got a new gym membership at a different place. Even though we had Planet Fitness, we want free weights. And so we're switching.
Uh-huh.
And still haven't been to the gym. And that's what helps me mentally stay away from heavy carbs.
And that's what it is. If you get rid of the carbs, you got to have something to fill that void.
Yeah. And lifting heavy and then eating, a high protein diet with some good fat in there. And I don't care about the carbs anymore.
But to do it.
It's so funny because it's like my neurologist is like, oh, don't lift heavy. And my cardiologist is like, oh, don't stop, keep doing it. Like, your heart really needs that, Don't push yourself further than what you should be doing, Be smart, balanced about it, but lift as heavy as you want. So I need to get back to it. I'm sure the next time I put 300 pounds on my back, it's going to feel like 6.
So, this is something, we had put this together to do the carb addiction back a few weeks ago when I canceled the meeting, when I was really deep into my depression. And it came about from Ken's addiction. Ken, would you like us to turn the camera off?
You can keep it out. I have nothing to hide from nobody.
Okay. I had gotten my Kroger receipts. And, when you go to order, we do a lot of Kroger pickup, so we're not going in and out of the store and whatever. Or he'll run down to Kroger's to get vegetables and fruit from the discount bin to feed the chickens. And I had a Kroger receipts on the computer because they pop up, see if you want to reorder these things. And I said, they really made a mistake. There's chocolate donuts and chocolate milk on here. And I kind of laughed about it. And like here on our receipts, they'd throw that at us, and then going back, there it was again. And it took him a while to fess up. And
I can tell you that
his addiction had gotten the best of him. He's been doing keto now with me for 2 years. And I don't know, he doesn't know health issues. Knowing, he just had his shoulder replaced, then it got well, he broke it. He's going in for a knee replacement and, just lots going. We don't know what causes anybody to do a backslide. It's life. But Ken, just a little explaining in your words.
this is something that I just not proud of, but it's there. I can tell you that carb and sugar is for real addiction. I am addicted. I am a sugar junkie, is what whatever you want to call it. I call it whatever you want, but this was going on for, I'd say, a good year, maybe more. That it was hard to walk into that store in the chocolate. Chocolate is a killer for me. It was almost every other time, or maybe every third time of going into the store, I'd walk right back. It was just like a magnet. Chocolate donuts, chocolate milk. And I would definitely eat and drink this before I got home. I hid this from my wife, which was the biggest mistake in the world to ever do, because I was just fooling myself for one and lying to my wife and lying to myself. It's hard. I deal with it every day. The doctor, you heard him say tonight with his coffee and a bridge, he called it. And I had to figure out something because I still have to walk into this store. I still have to buy things. I still have to get past this. And it's hard when it's the first thing that it's everywhere. And my bridge I came up with is I drink coffee. And it seems to work right now for me, so I'm going to continue using it. It's black coffee with some kind of chocolate element in it. I don't care what kind of chocolate element, it's one of them, and they got new ones now. And it seems if I walk in the store with that, it doesn't even enter my mind. It is a crutch, I do understand that, but still, it helps me to walk into that store and turn a blind eye to it because, like I said, I can turn left, it's there. I can turn right, it's there. You go to the checkout, it's everywhere. And it's hard when I have the addiction and I know it's always going to be with me. So I will tell you that tonight, with the addiction of carbs and sugar, it's real. I'm right here. I can tell you it's very real. And I know what's best for my body. It's been working. And it's eating keto and staying away from it. And it seems to be better. I know at times at night I'd feel real crappy for a few days after I'd feel that way. I never paid no mind to it. It just, that's the way it was. But I'm pretty sure it was the carbs that I was putting in, the poisons. I can tell you that if you need to talk to somebody, do it before you reach out and do these things. Be it anybody that'll listen, a spouse, a friend that won't condemn you or put you down for the way you're living your life or eating. Like I said, you can walk into any store. You can walk in the hardware store. It's there. There's food everywhere. But I just got to keep reminding myself what works. I don't want to grow old and be in a nursing home and have people wait on me because I can't do it myself. And I sure don't want to put that on my wife. I can tell you that I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but in my heart, I know I'm not going to do this again. I'm weak. I need prayers. This is something very hard. It's the admittance that I am a sugar addict. And it took a lot for me to even say this.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're not alone, buddy. This week, when I said the carbs, 3 times I've eaten those little things of donuts. 3 times this week, and we've been trying to figure it out. My sleep's been terrible this week. And you saying that,
Yes.
that would make a lot more sense. She doesn't know about the donuts. She's finding out right now.
Yeah, I didn't know.
That is how I found out, was finding the receipt. I went back through receipts for the last year. I put them out on a spreadsheet. I was so hurt to think of how many times I struggled, and now I'm making this personal to me, but I struggled wondering, what am I feeding him? What's wrong? Why is he hurting so
Right.
bad? We're cleaning up our diet. We're trying to get good sleep. I'm trying to do this whole list of, why is he hurting so bad? Why is he struggling? And that just accumulated at the same time that I came back from KPL, and that weekend my granddaughter had gotten married and I hadn't been invited. Everything just seemed to snowball, and it was probably the best thing for us that it did.
Right.
That we had to openly talk about that. An addict can make all the promises he wants, but Ken, as of right now, has promised me, if he walks in there and buys these things, he's going to bring them home. He's going to sit at our table and eat them. So maybe you can find a resolution yourself with what might help you. Because I'm sure Emily is hurting right now. Just now finding out that you cheated on her with those donuts. And you're struggling with your health issues.
Yeah,
But it's an addiction.
Please be straight with your spouse. Please. Say no.
And this group, we're all here to try to help each other. We talked about it before we turned the cameras on, before it officially came on tonight, that I want to record for our YouTube, our group, but I also want to turn off the camera at a time so we can have an open discussion amongst us. And I did ask Ken if he wanted me to turn off the camera before I asked him to talk. And he needs to put it out there. We're weak, even though we're up here leading this group. We're weak. But it's by coming to this group and helping each one of you. Hopefully you're helping us. And y'all have my telephone numbers, email addresses, whatever, reach out. So I know that with all the alcoholics in the family, I got to know a little bit of the terminology, and I know that they all had sponsors, somebody who was designated that they could call 24/7. And so think of this group as your sponsors. We all can contact each other. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
So, whew. And that was a hard discussion because carb addiction is real. Hey, we're going to do our draw.